Okay, everybody. How's everybody doing tonight? Welcome to the stream. Can everybody see me and hear me? Right. Looks like we're good. Okay, YouTube. Is this thing on? Okay, there we go. Don't know why it was dragging its feet, but it looks like we're okay now. So people can see me and hear me. We are good. We are live. Okay. Cool. So good evening, everybody. I said I was going to try to do this every Tuesday going forward for at least the off season. So we are here again on a Tuesday night. It is 7 o'clock p.m., which is earlier than the time I started last week. But we're going to try it and see if more people can show up or not. I don't know. Obviously, this lets the East Coast guys get in a little bit easier. So last week we did this with running backs, so today we're going to be doing it with wide receivers. Basically, we're going to use Tier Maker to figure out which teams have the best wide receiver rooms in the NFL. And let me change the name of the tiers. I like to be a little more descriptive. Oh. Oh, okay. I didn't want to do that. Hold on one second, guys. Okay, sorry about that. Had to answer something. Dude, the heart symbol on the chat is really annoying. Let me click it and see if that makes it go away. No, it doesn't. It blocks part of the chat. I don't like it. Anyway, so yeah, we're gonna rank every team's receiver um room into one of one, two. Okay, we're gonna do 6 tiers actually. I'm gonna add one new one, which and this one's just like terrible. But anyway, so the rules are basically the same as they were last time we did this with running backs. Every wide receiver room gets sorted into a tier. Couple rules. This is just for this one season. So the youth and long-term future potential of a running back of a wide receiver room doesn't really matter. It's just about this one year. Obviously, we're going to be projecting some things, though. We're going to be projecting certain guys are going to do this, certain guys are going to do that, etc., etc. Um, let's see. We're this is a real world situation here. So obviously, when you're considering how good a receiver room is, you first consider how good is their best receiver. That's the most important thing. And then the next most important thing is how good is their next best receiver, their number two. Then it's you consider how good is their number three. And then there's a big drop off. And then you consider how good is their number four. And then how good is another drop off, decent sized drop off, how good is their number five. And then some teams have a six, some don't, so that doesn't even really matter at all. But common sense basically dictates how you evaluate this. And understand that it's a even it's an even battleground. right? Some teams don't use receivers very much. Like the Bengals use receivers more than most teams, and the Ravens barely use their receivers at all. But that doesn't make their receiver room better just because they don't play them. It's just comparing receiver rooms for who's the best. So I think that's pretty much everything that needs to be said out of the way. So let's just go ahead and get underway here. We got like 40 people in here. By the way, I still haven't fixed my overlays. I don't know what's going on Stream Elements. I'll try to figure it out this week. So we don't have any widgets to show subs or donations or members or anything like that. If somebody super chats or becomes a member, I'll shout it out, of course. And if somebody tips, you won't get the pop-up on screen, but I will see it. And I'll shout it out all the same. So just understand that those things are not up right now. I don't know what's going on with Streamlabs, but I'm working on it. And hopefully by next week I'll have that sorted out. So the way I see it, we're going to start, first of all, let's just do the best one so we kind of get a frame of reference. The elite tier, the top tier has to be the Bengals. I think they are clearly the best receiver room in the league. They have Ja'Marr Chase, who's, I think, a top 3 receiver. They have T. Higgins, a proven 1,000-yard receiver. Tyler Boyd, who was a 1,000-yard receiver until he got squeezed by the guys in front of him. And then they added this offseason 2 of my favorite guys in the draft, Charlie Jones from Purdue and Andre Yoshivas from Princeton. Yeah, Princeton, I think. So that is a 5-deep group of receivers. They have star power at the top. They have great upper-level depth, and then they have really intriguing depth. So I think the Bengals are clearly the number 1 receiver group in the league, and honestly, I think they may end up possessing the top tier by themselves because I think they are clearly better than any other team's receiver group. I really do believe that. Like, all 3 of their top guys are basically proven number 1 receivers in a way. It's just they don't all put up those numbers anymore because of Ja'Marr Chase. But Tyler Boyd was a 1,000-yard receiver, and then he got squeezed because of Chase and Higgins. So, to me, they have basically 3 number 1s, and then they have 2 guys that I think are really interesting on their bench. Okay. So, now we're going to do the worst. Again, we're trying to do a frame of reference here. I think the worst is pretty clearly, and maybe there's a team I'm not thinking of here, but I think it's the Tennessee Titans. I think they are terrible. You take a look at their wide receiver depth chart. Their most interesting guy is Treylon Burks, who, he's a first-round pick, right? But the rookie year was just kind of okay. 444 yards, 1 touchdown. Not really a big impact down the stretch, it felt like. And we've seen rookie receivers kill it, right? So it's not like rookie receivers never do anything in the NFL. No, they have every opportunity to do things in the NFL. And then you've got Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I didn't know he put the Ikhine at the end of his name. But he's got like 900 receiving yards combined over the last 2 seasons. So he's like a little bit better than just a guy, but not much better than just a guy. They've got Kyle Phillips as their number 3, according to ESPN, who, yeah, this is his second year. Last year he had less than 100 yards, so he's just a guy. And everyone else all the way down their depth chart, I don't know any of these guys, and I don't think any of them have done anything. Racey McMath, Colton Dowell, Josh Weil. Maybe I know Josh Weil. Is he a rookie? Yes, he is. This is his first year, and he's listed as a tight end, but he's listed as a... Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, he is. I'm sorry. He is a tight end. You got Chris Moore, Reggie Roberson Jr., Mason Kinsey, Jacob Copeland, Trayshawn Harrison. Yeah, I don't know any of these guys, so I think that is pretty clearly the worst receiver room in the league. Which numbers would you put in with their pathetic QB? Ryan Tannehill's not that bad. Ryan Tannehill had a great year the year before. Like, I mean, he had Tannehill most of the year. That's not that bad. There are plenty of receivers out there that wish they had a quarterback as good as Ryan Tannehill. Okay, so now that we did the best and the worst, now let's move on through the list in alphabetical order. So we're going to lead off with the Arizona Cardinals, and fortunately for us, they already made a determination here by cutting DeAndre Hopkins, so we don't have to play the will they or won't they game. We already know they did. So the Arizona Cardinals, Marquise Brown, he's good. He's had a couple thousand-yard receive. Excuse me, not a couple, 1,000-yard season a couple years ago in Baltimore. Last year, he only played in 12 games and still had over 700 yards. Pretty decent season. So he's okay. Probably not a pure number one. And then they got Rondell Moore. Like, Rondell Moore is a little bit better, I would say, than just a guy. He's got about 850 receiving yards combined over 2 years, but can't really say he stands out as anything other than just like a solid role player. Then they got Greg Dortch, currently listed as their number three on ESPN. He kind of broke out last year because a bunch of people got hurt and had almost 500 yards. Okay. And then they got Michael Wilson, a rookie who I kind of have mixed feelings on. Oh yeah, Henry. Yeah, you're right. Malik Willis. I know who you're talking about. But the thing is, Malik only played a couple of games. They still had Tannehill for most of the season. So I don't think that's a viable excuse. Michael Wilson's kind of interesting. I don't really know what to think of him. Zach Pascal is a guy who I've always kind of liked as being like a really nice depth piece off the bench as a receiver in this league, but he's certainly not anybody you want playing a major role in your season. And then they got a bunch of kind of nobodies. So I kind of feel like that's got to be bad. I think they're bad. I think that's got to be a pretty bad receiver core. They don't really have a true number one. They're leaning heavily on a guy like Greg Dortch, who might just be like a role player. I don't really like anybody on their bench except for Pascal, and he's already kind of tapped out, I think. So I'm going to say Cardinals are bad. All right. Now we move on to the Atlanta Falcons. And they've basically invested all their hopes and dreams into Drake London, a top 10 pick a couple years ago. Last year he was good. Caught 72 balls for 866 yards and 4 touchdowns. Good rookie season. Was one of the better rookie receivers. Not the best, obviously, but he was up there. But then after that, you got Mac Hollins, who did an okay job last year for the Raiders, filling in when they had some injuries, but it was still just kind of okay. I don't think he's a true starting receiver in this league. They got Scotty Miller, who had a couple okay moments in the NFL when he linked up with Tom Brady. I think, if I'm thinking of the right guy here. Yeah, Scott Miller. Yeah, he never had more than 501 yards in a season. He had that one season with 500 yards. Hasn't done anything in the 2 years since. So that's a nobody. They got Penny Hart, Kaderel Hodge, Frank Darby, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. So, yeah, we're not counting tight ends. Tight ends are separate. So the Falcons, I think, are either going to be bad or terrible. And I'm kind of thinking they're terrible. I think they got to be. I think they got to be right at the bottom. They've got one, like, legitimate, good NFL receiver entering his second year, and, he could go one way or the other. But other than that, they don't have anything that I think is all that interesting. Like, Scotty Miller's been anonymous for 2 years. Mac Hollins had a decent year last year filling in for guys with injuries, but it wasn't amazing. Yeah, I think this is probably a terrible receiver core. No, I don't think so, Austin. I think the Cardinals are better. At least the Cardinals have a couple of guys who can play at a well above average clip. Yeah, but Henry, I don't think the Cardinals kept Anderson, right? I didn't see him on their depth chart. But I'm going to put the Falcons in terrible. I don't think they're as bad as the Titans, but they're pretty bad. They have a lot in common with the Titans, except I like their rookie receiver more than the Titans' or I should say second year receiver now. Okay, now we're moving on to the Baltimore Ravens. This is going to be really tough to rank, I can tell you that right now, because they have a weird receiver room. So we got Rashad Bateman. He's not been everything that they were hoping for when they took him in the first round yet. So that's been a disappointment. That's not a great start. He's got 800 yards in 2 seasons so far. Had a hard time staying healthy. Only played 6 games last year. Odell Beckham, who last time we saw him play was good, but that was a while ago. And I don't know how much confidence you can have in him getting back to where he was. They got Zay Flowers, rookie. I like him. I like Duvernay, Devin Duvernay. I remember liking him in the draft. Let me check the numbers here. Yeah, it's been nothing over the top, but last year he did start to kind of come on. He's obviously more of a special teamer, but I think he adds a little something to your offense. Nelson Aguilar, who, not bad depth. Andy Isabella, I remember him. I don't know. Are they good? Like, what makes them good? Rashad Bateman so far has been a bust. Beckham hasn't played football in well over a year. Zay Flowers is fun, but he hasn't done anything yet. Duvernay is more of a special teamer, although I do like some of his upside. I kind of feel like I kind of feel like I do think they're better than the Cardinals, but I don't know how much better than the Cardinals. I'm going to say they're average. I'm going to say they're average for now. I'm not completely sold on like Zay Flowers. I'm not going to go good. I can't go good yet. I'm going to say average. I think they have average receivers ish, you know? Okay. Now we're going to do the Buffalo Bills. This is another really tough one for me because they got one superstar in Stephon Diggs. Diggs, probably a top 5 receiver in the NFL right now, although he is going to turn 30 this season. He is coming off a season where he had 1,400 yards and over 100 catches and 11 touchdowns. Might have been a career year for him if he didn't miss a game. That alone is powerful. And then, they do have Gabe Davis, who I drafted him in fantasy last year, and he didn't exactly live up to my expectations, but he was good. He did have over 800 yards. So that's a nice one, too. They got Khalil Shakur, currently listed as their number 3. He didn't do much of anything last year, kind of a nobody. But they did make a sneaky offseason signing that I really like. Deontay Harty, a guy who did a lot of stuff for the Saints over the last few years, was a really good returner, and was breaking out as a receiver in 2021, and then he just got shelved in 2022. So I think if Deontay Harty becomes like their number 3 receivers, that is, I kind of feel like that's got to be good. I mean, Diggs by himself almost drags them to be good. But if Diggs is holding out, then they immediately become either bad or terrible, right? I can't imagine him not playing for them though. I'm gonna put them in good. I think Diggs alone pushes them most of the way to good. And then they've got Gabe Davis, and I like Deontay Harty. I'm gonna put them in good. Okay. Now we're gonna do the Carolina Panthers. Carolina Panthers, who I believe traded their best receiver to get the pick for Bryce Young, if I recall correctly. So their number one receiver is Adam Thielen, who's basically white Doug Baldwin, right down to the fact that he had a very short-lived prime and is now just kind of a good receiver. He's 33 this year, going to turn 33 in a couple of months. Hasn't made the Pro Bowl since 2018. Hasn't had a 1,000-yard season since 2018. Last two seasons combined, he has about 1,440 receiving yards. So he's just kind of a guy at this point, well past his prime. I like DJ Chark, but I believe he gets injured a lot. Let me check and make sure I'm not confusing him with somebody else. Yeah, last year he played 11 games for the Lions. The year before he played 4 games for Jacksonville. Was not very productive last year, 500 yards in 11 games. So he's kind of a couple years removed from being a really noteworthy receiver. He's just kind of a guy right now. Terrace Marshall Jr. was a guy they selected in, I think, the second round a couple years ago. Yeah, second round, and he hasn't done much yet. Last year he showed some signs of life. And then they got Jonathan Mingo, a rookie that I'm not super high on. LaVisca Chenault Jr., who I need to learn how to quit. Shee Smith, Demir Bird. Oh, they got Gary Jennings. Remember, got anybody in the chat remember Gary Jennings? Wonder if it's got to be the same Gary Jennings, right? I guess it's kind of a common name. Yeah, Derpy Squid. That is correct. So I think they're probably about as good as the Cardinals receivers. I'd probably put them in bad. I think that's a bad receiver room. Yeah, Austin, I think he was a fourth round pick. You know, a lot of these teams that are near the top of the alphabet have bad receivers. That's what I'm learning so far. Okay, next up we have the Chicago Bears, DJ Moore. DJ Moore's good, right? Like DJ Moore is a legitimate number one receiver in this league, I think. Yeah, he strung together some really nice seasons. Last year a little bit down, but Carolina basically only ran the ball at the end of the year, so you got Darnell Mooney, who is kind of a tough one, right? He dropped about 800 touchdowns last year. There is some talent there, though. He had 1,000 yards the year before. And obviously, things just kind of got messed up last year in some ways that were beyond his powers to control. And then they have Chase Claypool, who, I don't know, he seems like a clown, don't he? Seems like a little bit of a clown, been fairly productive in his career. But the start to his Bears career did not go very well. Tyler Scott, Equanimous St. Brown, Velus Jones Jr. Um, hmm. It's definitely good. Is it great? I don't I don't know. Is it great? Like Moore's a legitimate number one. Darnell Mooney and Chase Claypool are like legitimate-ish number twos with question marks, but they don't have a lot of depth. I like Tyler Scott, I think. He's a rookie. But other than that, they just kind of have a collection of guys who have been kicking around the league, sucking for a while. I think they're just good. I think the Bears are just going to be good here. Yeah, I feel pretty okay about that. Close. Thought about putting them in great because they are working with a quarterback who is a running back. Has to be remembered. Okay, Cleveland Browns. Cleveland Browns. They still have Amari Cooper. who isn't a great receiver anymore, but he is a great route runner. And he is good. There's no doubt about it. Is just turned 29 a few days ago, it looks like. Yeah, last year he did have almost 1,200 yards. They got Elijah Moore, who I believe the Jets kind of threw away, but he's had two kind of sort of passable seasons. Obviously a disappointment, but not terrible. They got Donovan Peoples-Jones, fun guy. Yeah, he actually had over 800 yards last year. Cedric Tillman, a rookie who I wasn't in love with. They got Marquise Goodwin, and Marquise Goodwin was low-key nice last year. Huh. They might be great. Like, Amari Cooper is still young enough to where he'll still be a productive number one, I think. Donovan Peoples-Jones is like a legitimate number two. Elijah Moore has enough talent to be a three. Then they got Goodwin. I think the Browns are probably great. I'm going to say the Browns are great. Feel pretty good about that. Okay. Dallas Cowboys. Where are the Cowboys receivers? CeeDee Lamb, obviously really good receiver, one of the better receivers in the league. I don't think he's top 5 yet, but he might be top 10. Had a really productive year last year, over 100 catches, 1,360 yards almost, 9 touchdowns. So CeeDee Lamb, really good. Brandon Cooks, a stealthy, super productive receiver in his career. He's got Hall of Fame numbers. I don't know if he will make the Hall of Fame, but that is a guy who's produced about as much as any receiver in the NFL. No Pedro. There are 6. And then they got Michael Gallup, who I think people are sleeping on. I think people are sleeping on Michael Gallup. He was recovering from an injury last year, didn't play very well. This is a guy who did have an 1,100-yard season once, and then the Cowboys got Amari Cooper. And then 2020, he was really good again that year too. And then 2021, he got hurt. Missed a lot of time last year recovering. Wouldn't shock me if he got back to form this year. So, top end, they are really, really good. They've got some semi-interesting guys in the depth room. Jalen Tolbert, Simi Fioco, Cavante Turpin. But nothing that really like stands out as being like, ooh, that's a really interesting depth piece at receiver. But what they have in their top 3, I think, is pretty legitimate. And then they have some half decent potential. Like Jalen Tolbert was a 3rd-round pick. He just didn't get used as a receiver very much. I do think he has some upside, though. He was a top 100 pick. Simi Fioco caught a couple passes last year, nothing over the top. I think they are probably going to be great. And I think, I mean, if we're going to split hairs here, I think I like them. Do I like them better or worse than the Browns? I guess I'll say the Browns. They have Goodwin. Okay, Denver Broncos. Who are the best receivers for the Denver Broncos? So, Jerry Jeudy was playing really nicely as that season went on last year. What did he end up with? Almost 1,000 yards. I gotta believe this year he gets to 1,000. He would have gotten to 1,000 last year if he got to play the whole season. He missed 2 games. So, he's a semi-legitimate number one, and I think he still has a little bit of upside to where he could become like a full-fledged number one. So that's good. I think Cortland Sutton is cooked, though. Sutton got injured and hasn't been the same since. That was like a couple of years ago. Now I think he's just like another good receiver. He's like capable, but he's not explosive. he's not like he's headed the wrong way, and he's only 28 this year. He's going to turn 28 in October, but I think that injury is something that it's like Derrick Rose almost, man. Like there was a time when he was in Pro Bowl, he made the Pro Bowl. Second year he made the Pro Bowl with Drew Lock throwing him the ball. Hey Mask, how you doing? Uh Tim Patrick um was really good, but we haven't seen him back from the injury yet. He missed the whole season last year after back-to-back really nice seasons. So he's still good, but I don't know if he's still great. We're going to need some time to evaluate that. KJ Hamler, kind of a bust right now, hasn't really done anything in the NFL. The last 2 years in particular, the first year was kind of okay, and then the last 2 years he's basically been on a milk carton. Been about as productive as D. Eskridge. Really like Marvin Mims. He's one of my favorite rookies. I like Marvin Mims a lot. I don't know if he's going to fit in great in that offense, but I like him in general. I think this is going to have to be a good receiver room. I think these receivers are good. I don't think they're great. I think I probably like them a little bit more than the Bears, but not as much as the Bills. So I would just throw them right in the middle here. I would say that's a good receiver room. Borderline top 10, above average, but I can't call them great yet. Denver's got like 5 solid receivers. Yeah, they do. If you assume KJ Hamler is solid because he hasn't done anything yet. Wilson to Juddy. I mean, Judy's the guy that he would put up numbers with, I think, more than anybody else. Like Sutton is not really a Wilson type of receiver. And I don't really think Mims is either. Okay. So now we're going to do the Detroit Lions. So this is going to be tough because they've got a top receiver who's going to miss 6 games because of a gambling suspension. But Amon-Ra St. Brown is a ton of fun. I don't know if he's a true number one, but he's very productive and it's at least close. He's not used like a traditional number one, but he's really good like one. So that's a great start. Jameson Williams was a first round pick, very hyped, very excited for him, but he's going to miss a minimum of 6 games this year. Marvin Jones Jr. still has, I'd say, a little above average level play to offer in this league. It's nothing. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Why is my YouTube feed lagging behind so badly? 1 second, guys. Hold on. Okay, we're fine. I don't know why, but it was showing me footage from like 20 minutes ago. Whatever. Anyway, Marvin Jones Jr., he's not great anymore, but he's a little bit better than being just a guy. And then they got Josh Reynolds. I think that's probably their key depth piece right now. And he's had his moments of being fairly productive in this league, fairly decent backup. I don't know. I think if Jameson Williams was going to play the whole season, that might be great. But I don't think I can put them in great when their arguably most talented receiver will miss 6 games and missed his entire rookie season, basically. But they are going to have him for the other 11. So I feel like they deserve to be good, right? Probably the low end of good. Is that about right? Like they still got good receivers. They missed who's the receiver guy they lost? The guy who caught the third down. I'm sorry, the fourth down against the Packers. Is the stream live? DJ Chark. Yes, thank you. I just looked at his name. I don't know why I couldn't remember his damn name. Okay. Thank you, Mask. DJ Chark. Okay. Okay, Green Bay Packers. Green Bay Packers. Christian Watson is their top guy right now. He came on strong last year for the Packers, ended up playing pretty well for them. Then they had Romeo Dobbs. He was decent. Jaden Reed, a guy they overdrafted, but I do like him. I think he'll make a good NFL player, but I think they took him in like the second, which was too high. They got Samori Torre, who was a rookie last season, didn't do that much. Dontavion Wicks, one of my least favorite players in this draft. They got Bo Melton, but no real depth to speak of. No surefire number one. One guy that feels like they have upper level potential in Christian Watson, but he's probably not going to get there this season. I think that's bad. Does anyone think they're like average? Can anyone make an argument for anything outside of bad? I feel like that's a bad receiver room. Like, unless Christian Watson makes a leap to like all pro this year, I don't think he can drag them past bad. Like, maybe he could drag them to average, but I don't think he could drag them to good. And more than likely, I think it's just going to be kind of bad. Sucks to be Jordan Love. I never got the sense that Romeo was going to be like upper level, even in the best case scenario. Like, he would just be kind of another good receiver. But I could be wrong. Okay, Houston Texans. Okay, they got Robert Woods, who. When was the last time Robert Woods had a good season? It was a little while ago. Yeah, 2019 was the last time he had a 1,000-yard season, 90 catches. Year after that, he had 90 catches again, actually. But then the last 2 years, he's been pretty quiet. Going to be 31. Yeah, he already is 31. Still probably, viable. Nico Collins, guy with some degree of potential, I guess. I remember kind of liking him in the draft. They took him in the third round. He's starting to make his move. Don't count out Nico. John Mechie the third. Wasn't he a first round pick? Or am I thinking of somebody else? Second round, okay. Hasn't done anything in the NFL yet, but obviously has upper level potential. Noah Brown is nice depth. Nathaniel Dell, interesting rookie. Xavier Hutchinson, Amari Rogers. Their receiver room is actually deep, but they don't have an even pretend number one right now. So I think they're like average, I'm going to say. You got to give Mechie a little bit of the benefit of the doubt, but I think they're just kind of average. They got like I think Nico Collins may end up surprising people as well. I'm high on Nico relatively speaking, but they're still like on the low end of average. Okay. Indianapolis Colts are next. So they've got an interesting collection of receivers. I don't really know what to make of them. Like they got Michael Pittman, who I think Mask is a huge fan of, and he's had a couple good years in a row. Basically 2,000-yard seasons. Last year he would have gotten there if he didn't miss a game. Alec Pierce, who impressed me last year as a rookie out of Cincinnati. Not over the top numbers, but he had about 600 yards playing without a good quarterback. And then they got one of the top rookies, Josh Downs, who I liked well enough. I wasn't crazy about him. Isaiah McKenzie, who I think was on the Bills last year. Let me make sure I have that right. Yeah, he was slightly productive last year for the Bills. Not great, but not awful. Brashad Perryman, who I love in Madden, but he's not good. They got our boy Malik Turner. Huh. My gut instinct says good, but they don't have a bang at home number one unless you really like Pittman. And their depth is okay, passable. I don't know. Are they average or are they good? Maybe they're like good average. Oh boy, that's hard. Because, like, I like more or less all three of their top guys. I think maybe they're like good average, so maybe I should put them there. The alternative would be I put them there. I'm going to put them in average. If they had a true, if Michael Pittman moves forward a little bit and becomes like a Pro Bowl caliber receiver, they could be there. It's really close. That is tight, tight, tight. Okay, Jacksonville Jaguars. Christian Kirk. I think we know what Christian Kirk is more or less. He's a good receiver who got overpaid, but maybe that's what Jacksonville had to do to get him. And we're not really worried about how much money these guys are making. We're just worried about how good they are. And Kirk had a nice season last year. He's like a semi-viable number one. Calvin Ridley was well on his way, and then he started doing stupid stuff. But the dude is immensely talented. The dude easily put up Pro Bowl numbers in 2020. Zay Jones is their number 3 right now, and he was really nice for them last year. 800 yards, very viable. Parker Washington, another rookie who I like. They don't really have any other depth besides Parker Washington, though. So, in case Calvin Ridley ends up being AWOL, that's kind of not what you want. They got Jamal Agnew, but he's just a return man. I think they're great. I think this is a great unit. I'll put them on the back end of great because Calvin Ridley might just have kind of lost the plot. But that is a legitimate top 3. That is a stacked top 3. Kirk, Ridley, Zay Jones. And Parker Washington is, I think, going to be a really nice depth piece. Okay. So that's half the league sorted. Now, real quick, I want to say something here for fun. At the end of this stream, when we're done with this receiver tier list, I am going to do a second tier list. It's going to be have nothing to do with sports, so I know some people are not going to be interested in it. And if that's the case, you can leave. If you want to, that's fine. But because Final Fantasy 16 is coming out in 2 days, and I'm actually going to be picking it up that night, and I'm excited to play it, and people are pretty excited to watch me play it over on Twitch, I am going to do a tier maker ranking of every Final Fantasy game. Like this, basically. So if you want to see that, stick around after this ranking is done. So just to let you guys know what I'm planning on doing tonight. Just trying to add a little variety. Okay, moving right along now. Now we got the Kansas City Chiefs. And they obviously have lost some of their top guys lately. Right now, their top listed guy is Marquez Valdez-Scantling, MVS, the immortal MVS, who's never had more than 700 yards in a season. And last year for the Chiefs did play fairly well. He was a good piece, but never shown any signs of being able to be a stud. Kadarius Toney, who's been a colossal bust so far, but showed some signs of life in the playoffs. And then they got Sky Moore. Is he a rookie or was he a rookie? Yeah, he was a rookie last year, and he didn't do that much. Rashee Rice, I do like a lot. Other than that, their depth is just kind of whatever. I think they're probably bad. I'm not going to say terrible, although I think you could make at least a little bit of an argument that they're terrible. But I think they're just bad, and I think they're actually on the low end of bad more than anything. Like, well, yeah, I'll worry about that later. But I think the Chiefs just got to be bad at the receiver spot, right? That's one of the worst receiver rooms. Yeah. The Chargers. Los Angeles Chargers. What do we got? So they still got Keenan Allen, who it feels like you can never really count on anymore. He is 31 years old. He is coming off a year where he only played in 10 games and only had 750 yards, but he had a nice stretch of seasons from 2017 to 2021, made the Pro Bowl every year, was productive every year. I mean, if you feel like he's going to be healthy, that is a legitimate number one but I don't think he's at the point where you can call him a superstar. They got big Mike Williams, who's like the 800th Mike Williams we've had in the NFL. He's had some very productive number one receiver type seasons, but he's a good number two more than anything. And then they got Quentin Johnston, one of the top rookies, who we've spent some time talking about before. Then they got Joshua Palmer, who I believe was good for them last year. So they got depth. Jalen Guyton, interesting player. Darius Davis. Are they great? I think they're great. I think that's got to be great. Like they're probably bet. They're probably right up. They're probably like better than Cleveland. The only issue is Keenan will probably get hurt, but I don't know if that's enough to move them off. Yeah, but Eckler's a running back. That's a different consideration, Henry. This is pure receivers. Okay, now we're going to do the other LA team, the LA Rams. Cooper Kupp, one of the best receivers in the league when healthy. Van Jefferson, who we're all kind of waiting for him to break out. Hasn't really happened yet. He did have 800 yards the year the Rams won the Super Bowl. But he's already 27 or about to be 27. So if he was going to break out, it probably would have happened by now. And then they've got Ben Skronik, who I think played some fullback for them last year. A little bit of production, nothing over the top. Tutu Atwell, a meme. Puka Nasua, I kind of like him, but not that much. So this receiver room, I think Cooper Kupp is too good for them to be bad. But I don't think there's any reason to put them in good. I'm going to say Cooper Kupp drags them to the top of average, but they're still average. Like, Cooper Kupp is good enough to where I feel like he single-handedly makes the receiver room average. But I can't go higher than that. And I don't think I can go lower than that. Okay, next up we have the Las Vegas Raiders. And a year ago, you would have felt a lot better about their receiver room than you do now. They've got Devontae Adams. Still, Devontae's got to be top five still, right? Like, I know last year, I mean, he was really good still. 1,500 yards, 100 catches, 14 touchdowns. So, despite getting a huge drop off at quarterback, he was still very productive. Jacoby Myers is currently listed as their number two. He's had 3 pretty productive years in New England. Clearly a good, positive player. And then you've got Hunter Renfrow, who missed a decent chunk of the year last year. But I mean, the guy proved himself with a 100 catch season in 2021. That when healthy, he's a very nice possession receiver. And then for depth, they got guys like Keelan Cole, decent depth. Trey Tucker, kind of like him. DeAndre Carter actually did okay for the Chargers last year because they had all those receiver injuries. He had like 500 yards. So, I don't know. I'm tempted to say great. I think that's a great receiver core. Like, what would make them not great? A lot of people are saying good. I feel like they're great. Like, Devontae Adams alone drags them to average. Then they've got Jacoby Myers, and then they've got Renfrow and passable depth. I feel like this is a great receiver room. The only thing holding me back is the fact that Renfrow didn't do much last year. But I still think it's great. Maybe it's like bottom end of great. Something like that. All right. Miami Dolphins. This is going to be fun. Right? You've got Tyreek Hill, still super elite. Right? You got Tyreek, future Hall of Famer. Had 1,700 yards and almost 120 catches last year. About as good as it gets. And then you had Jalen Waddle, who's had a really nice couple of years to start his career. 1,000 yards in each season. Last year he had 1,350 yards despite splitting catches with Hill. And then it's tough, right? Because their number three receiver on ESPN right now is Cedric Wilson, who had one nice year for the Cowboys in 2021, 600 yards, went to Miami, and then kind of disappeared because there just wasn't enough ball to go around. But you could say that Cedric Wilson's like a viable ish number three receiver. And they've got Robbie Chosen or Robbie Anderson on their bench, right? Isn't Braxton Berrios kind of good too? Honestly, I mean, Robbie Anderson might be washed up at this point, though, is the thing. That's what I would say. Like last year, he had less than 300 yards in 16 games. He might be kind of shot. They got Freddie Swain, too. Wow. He's still active, huh? Yeah, Braxton Berrios actually made the all. Braxton Berrios made All Pro as a special teamer one year, but he only really had the one year where he was like a passable receiving threat. So they're either great or elite. I'm going to put them in elite. Although, again, the issue here is I'm looking at it and I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, the Bengals have way better receivers than the Dolphins, right? Their receiver room is just way better. But the Dolphins are clearly up there. Hey, Vikings. And this one's going to be tough because, in my opinion, the Vikings have the best receiver in the league. I think Justin Jefferson is the best receiver in the NFL right now. Last year, he had 1,800 yards, 130 catches, 8 touchdowns, 70% catch rate. Then they drafted Jordan Addison, who's one of the top rookie receivers. I like him. KJ Osborne, that's kind of the interesting question mark here, right? He's had 2 good years in a row, 2 years averaging about 50 yards a game and catching touchdowns. So KJ Osborne's viable as a number three. And then behind him, they got Ragor, a guy who I really liked coming out of the draft, and obviously he's a bust, but not a bad guy to have kicking around on your bench. I don't see a ton else other than that on their bench, though, like Brandon Powell. He's never really done much of anything. Jalen Naylor, so they have a Jalen Ragor and a Jalen Naylor on their bench, but um, let's see here. Let me think. I'm gonna say the Vikings are great. I think they're a really strong grade. I'm not going to say elite yet because I don't really like their depth that much, and KJ Osborne isn't over the top. And I don't love Addison. I like him a lot, but I don't love him. So I'm going to say they're the best team in great, probably. All right, New England Patriots. Juju Smith Schuster. I don't know. What do you guys think Juju is at this point? Like, he made the All Pro team. Or, well, he had an All Pro caliber season 2018, and like people seem like they just are waiting for him to get back to that, and it's not happening. Hasn't had a 1,000 yard season since. Yeah, Austin, I kind of am thinking about that. The issue with the Dolphins is Tyreek is getting older, so there's got to be a little bit of slippage coming. I'll think about that a little bit later. The Juju thing, yeah. I mean, he's not really a number one right now, I don't think, but he's a good receiver. They got Devontae Parker, who, I mean, he's good enough to start in the NFL right now, probably, but you're not thrilled about him starting. Tyquan Thornton is a guy who was intriguing in the draft because he was so fast, but probably won't do it. Kendrick Bourne, Kayshawn Boutte. Yeah, I think this is probably going to be This is probably bad, right? This is bad. They don't have a true number one. They've got some okay depth, but like Tyquan Thornton should not be a top 3 receiver on a real depth chart. So they're probably bad. They're better than the Chiefs because they stole Juju from them. Oh yeah, Malik Cunningham's a receiver. New Orleans Saints. New Orleans Saints. New Orleans Saints. Chris Olave is their number one right now. And he was good last year. 1,000 yards, 72 catches, 4 touchdowns. Good rookie season. And then you have the immortal Michael Thomas, who had one of the best seasons ever in 2019. And for the last 3 years has been mostly anonymous. They keep saying he's back, but he's 30 now, by the way. He's 30 now. Probably not a top receiver anymore. They got Rashid Shaheed listed as their number 3. He did decently for them last year. Productive. They got Traquan Smith. Not a little bit of an impact as a receiver. A.T. Perry, interesting rookie. They got James Washington. I remember him. Are they just average? Feels pretty average, I would say. I think the Saints are going to be average. The potential of Michael Thomas making a comeback, I think, pushes them a little above bad. But I don't think they're good. Olave didn't have that good of a rookie year. It was a good rookie year. I think they're just average. Ooh, excuse me. All right, now we're going to the New York Giants. Let's take a look at what they got. Isaiah Hodgins hasn't really done. He was kind of sort of okay last year. Did a little bit, not a lot. Darius Slayton, kind of fun as a deep threat, but has bad hands. Not terrible. Little bit of production in his career. They got Paris Campbell, another guy who I really like as a backup, but I don't like him so much as like a starter. Jalen Hyatt, rookie, appealing, but not much there yet. This one's weird, man. This is such a weird collection of receiver talent. Isaiah Hodgins, Darius Slayton, Paris Campbell, Jalen Hyatt, Wan'Dale Robinson, Sterling Shepard, Jamison Crowder. It's like there's no number one. The only guy who I think has upper level potential left is like Jalen Hyatt. Maybe Wan'Dale. But he didn't get a chance to do much last year. He only played 6 games. Whew, boy. So I'm tempted to say terrible. I think they're terrible. Yeah. I think that Giants room it's either bad or it's terrible. They are admittedly deep. They do have good depth, but it's kind of they have a collection of guys who are just kind of meh. I don't know if that's really commendable. They have a collection of guys who I know the name of, right? Okay, New York Jets. Duval Prod, what are you talking about? Falcons have one good receiver. Okay, New York Jets receivers. This one's going to be kind of interesting. Garrett Wilson, really good rookie year, was very productive on a terrible offense. Like a ungodly bad passing offense last year with the worst quarterbacks in the league. Still had 1,100 yards and 83 touchdowns. Kyle Pitts doesn't count, Duval Prod. Alan Lazard is their number 2. Viable starting receiver in this league. Broke out last year with almost 800 yards in 15 games. Would have probably broken 900 if he didn't miss 2 games. Mecole Hardman Jr., a guy who was highly drafted and kind of disappointed in Kansas City, but belongs on a football field and belongs as a at least decent starter. Still got Corey Davis kicking around, Randall Cobb, Denzel Mims. That's probably good, right? Are the Jets good or are they great? Like, I feel like Garrett Wilson's going to be a top receiver this year. I think he pushes them by themselves, and then they have good depth. Lazard was good last year. I think they're probably great. I'm going to say the Jets are great. Low end of great. Duval Prod, stop spamming. Okay, the Philadelphia Eagles are up next. And I think I already know where these guys are going. The Philadelphia Eagles have as good a 1-2 punch as you will find. They got A.J. Brown, one of the best young receivers in the league. 2-time Pro Bowler. Last year had almost 1,500 yards playing with a quarterback that can't throw more than 3 yards in front of his face. And then they got the number 2, Devontae Smith, who had 1,200 yards last year with that same quarterback who can't throw. However, behind those two guys, you've got Quez Watkins, who, I mean, he's passable, not terrible, but doesn't stand out. They signed Olamide Zaccheaus, decent depth signing. Don't hate that. Obviously, these guys have depressed stats because they don't throw the ball that much in Philly. But at the same time, I don't know if I can call them elite when they're kind of too deep, you know? Like their number 3 receiver is just kind of very forgettable. He's not bad. But they're either great or elite. I'm tempted to say elite because Jalen Hurts can't throw and they still put up those numbers. Sure. Although honestly, this is kind of making me want to that because like the Bengals have better receivers, I think, than these two teams by a fairly decent margin. Okay, next up we have the Pittsburgh Steelers receiver room. Who do they have left over there? They got George Pickens, who's been nice so far, and Deontay Johnson, who made the Pro Bowl a couple years ago. Last year wasn't as good, but still productive, still a quality receiver. Pickens is good. They signed Allen Robinson, traded for him, got him for a steal. So that's a pretty viable top 3. But after that, why'd you put the Falcons in terrible? Because they have one good receiver. Drake London. Okay, Calvin Austin, yeah, hasn't really done anything in the NFL yet. They got Gunnar Olszewski, who made a all-pro team, but not as a receiver. He was a special teamer. Not really any kind of threat as a receiver. They got Miles Boykin, Anthony Miller. Yeah, I guess they're good. I guess they're good. I'm going to say good. Probably like a pretty strong good as well. Something like that. All right, guys. It's the moment you've all been waiting for, the Seattle Seahawks. Um, I really like our receiver group for this season. You got DK Metcalf. Had 1,000 yards last year. Obviously, he's capable of much more. He was 1,300 yards a couple years ago. 90 catches. So, really nice season for him. He should be coming into his prime. Tyler Lockett, he's turning 31 early in the season, so age is going to start to become a factor here, but he strung together 5 really, really impressive seasons for the Seahawks now. 5 just really upper level seasons, and is a very viable starter. Number 2 starter, one of the better number 2s in the league. And then JSN, who everybody is talking. You know, if you pay attention to the training camp stuff with the Seahawks, they're acting like JSN's going to be Jerry Rice. They love this guy. They are crazy impressed with him. So that is a really strong top 3. Obviously, the top depth piece right now is probably D. Eskridge, who I've kind of given up on, but he is a second round talent. There is something there. I just don't believe he's ever really going to get there anymore. Derek Young, kind of interesting. Cade Johnson, interesting. None of these guys have really done anything that makes people have confidence in them. I can see where there's a little bit of potential there, but overall, our depth is just not up there with some of the better depth teams. But the top 3 is so good. I think they're still elite. So I think they are elite. I think it's an elite receiver room. And the guys complement each other extremely well. So I think they're number 2. They're either number 2 or number 3. Maybe they're number 3 behind the Dolphins. I don't know. I think we're either 2 in front of Miami or we're 3 behind Miami and in front of Philly. One of the two. Okay. Now we got ourselves the San Francisco 49ers. Debo, not coming off a good season. He was not good for the Niners last year, but we know how good he is. We know what he can do. Yeah, he only had 600 yards last year, but the year before he was awesome. I imagine he'll be at least somewhat back to form this year, healthy, playing the full season or at least most of it. Brandon Ayuk starting to come around, it looks like. 1,000 yards last year. Top 25 pick in the draft once upon a time. And then after that, they got, let's see, Jawan Jennings. Let me make sure I remember who this is. He did a little bit last year, not the worst. Ray McLeod. He was kind of okay. Yeah, he's done a little bit over the last couple years in the league. Not a ton, but just a little bit. Danny Gray. Like, they're searching for a number 3 receiver. They haven't really found him yet. Everybody's just kind of like, yeah, kind of okay, kind of okay. They got Willie Snead. We got Willie Snead's feed and seed. I mean, he hasn't really had an over the top year in a while, but he's had his moments. They got Daz Newsome. I remember Daz a little bit. Um, I think they've got to be great. I think Debo is going to have a bounce back year. I think they're great. I put them like here. Yeah, Snead hasn't done anything in like 2 years. All right, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are next up. Mike Evans, one of the most productive receivers in NFL history over the first, 8 years of his career. Had at least 1,000 yards every single season, viable number 1 all day. But after that, I'm not sure. Like, Chris Godwin is. Not what he was. I'll put it that way. Not what he was. But still good. Still had two straight really nice seasons, over 100 catches. They got Russell Gage. He's pretty good, pretty solid. Better in Atlanta, but he got more targets there. And then their depth is kind of non-existent. I don't really like anybody here. They lost some of their depth to other teams. Maybe Trey Palmer, but rookie, unknown, sixth round pick. So I'm gonna say they're great, something like that. Godwin's still recovering from the ACL. Yeah, been a couple years though. It's put up or shut up this year. Fields Pack, what the hell is wrong with you? Are you okay? Are you having a stroke? You okay? Jeez. Um. Okay, that gets us to the Washington Commanders. Last team, guys. Washington Commanders. Scary Terry's nice. You know, Scary Terry. He does his pretty good. He's had three straight really productive seasons. Good receiver for Washington. And he's not really had help from his quarterbacks. Jahan Dotson. Decent last year. Nothing over the top. Curtis Samuel. I feel like Curtis Samuel's been around forever, but only since 2017. Decent. Nothing super special. De'Ami Brown was a guy I loved in the draft, but I guess it's just never going to happen for him. I don't know. Yeah, he hasn't done anything. So they got no depth, and they've got one really good receiver, and then I don't know. They're kind of like average, I think. Maybe on the high end of average, like this. Okay. Okay. I think that's probably pretty good, right? Like, okay, we got the Bengals at the top by themselves. Seahawks, Dolphins, Eagles are elite. Vikings, Chargers, Niners, Browns, Cowboys, Jags, Buccaneers, Raiders, and Jets are great. Bills, Steelers, Broncos, Bears, and Lions are good. Commanders, Rams, Colts, Ravens, Texans, Saints are average. Cardinals, Packers, Panthers, Patriots, Chiefs are bad. And the Falcons, Giants, and Titans are terrible. So, yeah, I feel pretty good about that. I'm trying to see if I would switch up anything here. I'm maybe the Cowboys should be above the Browns because CeeDee Lamb is better than anyone. I don't know. I got to give the Bucks a little more credit than I do, I think. Too many great teams? Maybe. Maybe. Overall, I'm pretty happy with that. All right. I'd move the Texans down a bit besides Robert Woods and Nico. John Mechie still hasn't played yet. Yeah, but he's got potential, right, Joker? Or Joke R? Too much credit for depth players? I don't know. Let's look at this. Like the Vikings have a really nice 1-2 punch, theoretically. Like I don't feel like I did that anywhere though. Like maybe I did it with like the Jets, but I think Alan Lazard is better than depth player. Like I don't know who I would bump down of these teams. I don't think any of them should be bumped down, really. I mean, we did end up with 13, 14 teams in the bottom half and 18 teams in the top half. I'm not too upset about that. I completely disagree, Jokar. The Raiders have maybe the best receiver in the league, and Hunter Renfro, and the Patriots guy who's coming off a really nice year. Like to me, that is a great receiver room all day. All right, so there's the bird's eye view. Bengals are in the top tier. You don't see them, Austin? They're right at the top. Where do I think D Hop goes? I don't know why you wouldn't go to Kansas City. That makes the most sense to me. Okay. All right. That was cool. Okay, guys. So I'm going to go on break for a couple minutes here. And when I come back, we're going to do the Final Fantasy tier list, which is obviously completely different from this. So if you don't really care, you can leave while I'm on break. I'll be back in a few minutes. And we'll do a Final Fantasy tier list to celebrate the new Final Fantasy coming out on Thursday. So I'll see you guys in a few minutes unless you decide to depart. If you do decide to depart, then I will see you next time we do this. Hope you guys had fun. Okay, we are back, and we are going to be switching it up here. Hold on, let me... There we go. Can everyone see me and hear me and see the screen? All right. Excellent. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and record this as well and probably upload it as a separate video, like the day maybe the day 16 comes out. Okay. Test. So obviously, like I want to reiterate, I know this isn't going to be for everybody, but for those of you who are here and enjoy such things, hope you have fun. Okay. All right, everybody. Final Fantasy 16 is coming out in a couple of days. I have the game pre-ordered. I will be playing it as soon as I am able to. Plan on picking it up the night before. I believe they're doing either a Wednesday or a Thursday 9 p.m. release. And I thought to celebrate the impending release of the game, we would do a tier maker ranking of every Final Fantasy game that I have played. So, Final Fantasy is a franchise that I think boasts, and more than any other franchise I played, this incredible combination of quantity and quality. It has some of my favorite games of all time are Final Fantasy games. I haven't played a game in the franchise that I think is actually like bad. Um, Granted, that's because there have been some games that I purposefully avoided because I knew that I probably wouldn't like them. But I have played something like, 20 different Final Fantasy games. I played 20 different Final Fantasy games, and I haven't played any that I thought was like bad. Every single game I was like, okay, I can at least find some decent things here. Not necessarily a game I would ever play again, but I didn't hate playing it. I played through them, I beat them. I've beaten every Final Fantasy game I played except for the two that I'm actually actively playing right now. Actually, three, now that I think about it. So, let's go ahead and get going with this ranking. I adjusted the tiers to kind of scale things a little bit. Got Masterpiece, Amazing, Great, Very Good, Good, Pretty Good, Okay, and Did Not Play. As you can see, I don't really have like a bad or a terrible tier because they'd be... I haven't played a Final Fantasy game that I thought was like bad or terrible, like I said. They definitely exist, I just haven't played them. Now, this tier list claims to have every single Final Fantasy game in it. So because of that, there are going to be a lot of games here that I didn't play. Like, even when you try to play as many games in the franchise as I have, you're going to miss a lot because the franchise is just so big and they have released a lot of chuff. And like this entire first row, All-Star Carnival did not play, Echoes of Time, Dirge of Cerberus Lost Episode. I don't know what this is. I guess it never got translated. Crystal Chronicles, I always wanted to play, did not play it. Didn't play this. Final Fantasy Dimensions 2, I've never even heard of that. Brave Exvius, I think that was like the pre-order or some kind of pre-order thing for 15 or some kind of follow-up to 15. I don't know. Final Fantasy Tactics S. Let me check and be sure. Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah. This I have not played. That might be War of the Lions. Arcanets Die. Yeah. This list has literally everything that ever had Final Fantasy in the title. So we're going to go through a lot of stuff that I did not play and would never play. Okay. So now I think we're getting to the first game I played here. Let me check here and make sure, because I did play Crisis Core. However, I played the remake on PC. I did not play the original Crisis Core on the PSP. And I know the Crisis Core on PC updated some things, made the game a little bit better. I don't think they changed the core concepts of the game that much, But it's going to be a different experience, of course. But I don't see Crisis Core remastered here individually. So that being the case, Crisis Core I thought was, yeah, I played Crisis Core Reunion. I thought it was good, bordering on very good. Can't quite get to very good, but I thought it was a good game. I liked the combat. I liked the progression. It was very grindy, admittedly, but I thought it added a lot to the Final Fantasy VII lore, which I liked because that's not something they touch all that often, it feels like. And Crisis Core, if I played it on the PSP, I would probably like it a little bit less, but I don't think I'd like it that much less. So I'm going to say that's a good game. That's a game I played on stream last year, late last year. Played it out front of my viewers, and people seem to really like it. So Crisis Core, I'm going to put that there, again, with the caveat that I played Reunion. Did not play the original, but it's not represented here. Okay. Monster of the Deep, Final Fantasy 15. Is that like an expansion pack? Ring of Fates, Chocobo's Dungeon. Like so many of these games I haven't even heard of. Oh, wait a minute. Is this World of? Yes. Okay. World of Final Fantasy. Yeah, King Zoe. I kind of got those vibes too. I know what you mean. Okay. World of Final Fantasy. Let me make sure that this isn't like some spin off and this is actually the World of Final Fantasy that I have played. I'm pretty sure that it is. I mean, to my knowledge, this list isn't in any kind of order, so I just kind of have to scan. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that is just the straight up Worlds of Final Fantasy up at the top. I have played that one. It was good. It was kind of a fan service game. The battle system ended up being okay. I wouldn't say anything crazy good about it, but it was fine. It was kind of cutesy, very chibi, but I would say that's a little bit better than Crisis Core. I would say put that in good, ahead of Crisis Core by a little bit. Forgettable-ish, but I would not hate playing it again, except for the fact that it's so long. But that's good. Final Fantasy XII Revenant Wings did not play. Always wanted to, but I think it was only on the DS. The Four Heroes of Light did not play. Final Fantasy 15, A New Empire. I don't know what that is, because I've definitely played Final Fantasy 15. What is A New Empire? Oh, it's a mobile game. It's an MMO. Okay, I definitely haven't played that then. Final Fantasy Artnix. The Crystal Bearers. No, did not play. My Life as a King. My Life as a Dark Lord. Crystal Chronicles. Did not play. I have Dirge of Cerebrus, but I have not played it yet. I'm pretty sure this is a Dissidia sequel that I did not play. I played the original Dissidia. What is this? Can anyone tell what this one is over here on the left side? Let me try to zoom in real close here. Like, that's Cloud. That's Tidus. That's Squall. Is this supposed to be Dissidia? Is this the original Dissidia? Let me see if I can do a search here. Yes, that is the original Dissidia. And that is a game that I'm actually playing through right now on my Vita. It's interesting. It's basically a fighting game, but it's done more like an action game because it's not a side to side fighter. It's like a third person fighting game, but there's nothing in the game except for combat. So it's not an action game. It's a fighting game. But to me, the game is good. I have issues with it. The fights are over so quickly some of the time. It's really hard to get your character to do what you want it to do sometimes. Sometimes I feel like I don't have as much control over things as I want to. So that's another one that's just going to be good. And I know that category is getting a little populated right now, but that's how I feel. so far. Okay, this is Final Fantasy 2, which I believe was Final Fantasy 4 in Japan, because this is I think this is Cecil on the cover. If I'm remembering correctly, this is Cecil. I believe this is this is Final Fantasy 4 2 in America. This game I played through like maybe almost 20 years ago on an emulator, and I thought it was really good. I thought it held up remarkably well. It's one of my favorite Super Nintendo games. I am going to bump that up a tier, I think. If this is the game that I'm thinking that it is, I'm going to say that is a very good game. If I had played it back when it came out, I think I would have said it was great, but I did not. I played it by the time it was already a retro game. Uh, got some really cool story beats. Got some really cool, excuse me, got some really cool characters in it. In a way, I feel like it's aged better than 5, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But Final Fantasy 2/4 is a very good game. Okay, now we're back. I don't know what this is, but I guess it never got translated. What is this? Final Fantasy 4? That cannot be Final Fantasy 4. That doesn't look like the box cover at all. What is this? Final Fantasy IV. Huh. We'll come back to that one. I don't know what that is, but I don't think I played it. Final Fantasy Agito did not play. Final Fantasy All the Bravest did not play. War of the Visions did not play. Brigade did not play. All these Game Boy games never got a chance to play, which is a shame. I really should have done something about that. Final Fantasy Pictologica, no. Advanced. Man, they made so many Final Fantasy 15 spin-offs, which is weird because the game isn't even that good. Like, why did they spin off one of their lesser games so much? Yeah, did not play Dissidia, Final Fantasy Opera Omnia, did not play that one. Mobius Final what is that? Morbius Final Fantasy? Is does the main character say it's Morbin time? Okay, I'm gonna just put this in didn't play, even though I can't tell what it is, because I'm guessing it's a Final Fantasy IV remake, and I played the original. Okay, this is the Nintendo DS Final Fantasy III. So if that's the DS, I didn't play it. DS didn't play it. Final Fantasy Tactics Advanced did not play it. Now, we get to something that I actually have played. And believe me, we're going to get to a lot of stuff that I've actually played. I know so far it's been mostly just dumping stuff in here, but we're going to get to it. Final Fantasy 1, the original Final Fantasy. I actually played through this game for the first time just a couple years ago. And I mean, look, it's a very simple game. You've got four very basic characters, very generic plot, very simple mechanics. There isn't a ton to the game, but it works as long as you play the PlayStation 1 version, which is basically the NES version fixed, right? Because the original version barely worked. I would put Final Fantasy 1, I would say that's good. It's on the low end of good though. Like it doesn't really hold up that well, but the game works. And the game's fun to play through. I didn't have a problem playing through it. I don't think I would ever play it again, but it was good. Okay. Theorhythm. Theatrhythm. Don't know. Realm Reborn. My friend has put several thousand hours into a Realm Reborn. I have not. I've not played it. All right, now we're cooking. Now, everybody ready? We're about to cook. Hold up, let me cook. In fact, let me just get this out of the way now, so the entire next row is me. Because I have not played Final Fantasy XI. That's an MMO, did not play it. Okay, Final Fantasy IX was the first true RPG I ever played. It was the first non-Pokemon, non-Final Fantasy Tactics RPG that I played, so the game means a lot to me. Now, I don't think the game is actually great. I don't. This is a rare instance where I'm going to say, yeah, this is not a great game. The story is a little bit of a mess. The mechanics play like an NES game. I understand these things. The protagonist is not nearly as good as the other PS1 Final Fantasies. It's very cartoony in the style, which I think is a disappointment after they were trying to go a different direction with 8. But Final Fantasy IX is a game that was very important to me because it was the first true Final Fantasy game I played, and it was the first time I really figured out what this series was about. The fact that the game is simple and easy allowed me to just kind of pick it up and run with it. So for me, this game is great. I think that if it were not for the fact that I played the game when I was at such an impressionable part of my youth as a gamer, it would probably be very good. I would probably see the flaws a little bit more. But it is, for me, a great game, for sure. Oh boy, okay. The only Final Fantasy game I played before 9 was Final Fantasy Tactics. Had a friend loan it to me, and I had never played a game like it before. I had never seen anything like this before. I had never experienced anything like this before. It was such a different experience. This is another example. This is one of there are very few examples of video games that I overrate for nostalgic purposes. Like Final Fantasy Tactics, the translation is kind of whack. The presentation of the story is messy. The gameplay is basically been completely fixed and made better with a game like Disgaea. I acknowledge these things, but Final Fantasy Tactics was a game that I played through. I remember I had to go through the game 5 times to finally beat it. The first 4 times I would get stuck on that final gamut of battles you had to do. I remember those last, like, it was like 4 or 5 fights in a row where you couldn't heal, you couldn't grind. I got stuck on that so many times, had to figure that out. It was a game I spent so much time on. So for me, Final Fantasy Tactics, technically, yes, it's not a masterpiece, but for me it is. Because this game changed everything for me. I never played a game like this before when I played this one. I played it, by the time I played it, it was already like 5, 6 years old. But I got it after this game. I really got it. I was like, wow, I want more like this. I want more games like this. So, to me, that's a masterpiece. Okay. Final Fantasy VII. This is another game I played. By the time I got around to it, it was about 7 years old. I didn't really know what to expect. You couldn't use the joystick with the game, which is like really, really tough to overcome sometimes. I understand these things. Final Fantasy VII. Um, Awful graphics, bad translation. But very memorable. One of the most memorable games I've ever played. It's my favorite game of all time. So I can't put it anywhere else. I gotta put it in Masterpiece. For me, the game is a absolute masterpiece. I played through it probably like 6 times. I've done the master file. I've done by master file I mean I get every character's stats up to 255 in every category. I do both the optional bosses. I do, max chocobo breeding to get Knights of the Round, which takes forever and then isn't even really worth it because it's so easy to beat the game without Knights of the Round. But it was so cool to have Knights of the Round, you still did it, even though chocobo racing was actually a pain in the ass. This was like one of the first games I ever played where I remember staying up like past midnight to play. And that was a big deal for me. I liked my sleep when I was young. I didn't like to stay up late, but I remember breeding chocobos at like 2 a.m. trying to get Knights of the Round. So to me, that's a masterpiece, and to me, that is the greatest game ever made. Okay, Final Fantasy VIII. I always thought the PlayStation 1 Final Fantasies were kind of like Indiana Jones. Like 7 was the first one, and that was the most popular, the one that is universally loved. And then 8, they tried to make it a little more serious, and they lost a little bit of their base. And then they tried to get it back with 9 by being lighthearted. That's kind of what Indiana Jones did. Because Temple of Doom was really dark and controversial and kind of weird, and some people were put off by it. So then they did The Last Crusade, which was much lighter and simpler. But anyway, 8. This is a game that a lot of even big Final Fantasy fans do not like. There are a lot of big-time Final Fantasy fans that do not like Final Fantasy 8 because they don't like the character design, they don't like the story, they don't like the draw system, which, by the way, you can easily break the game. Like, you can basically shatter it into a million pieces with the draw system if you know how to utilize it. They screwed up the level scaling, but here's the thing. You have to abuse those mechanics to make it matter. If you don't abuse the mechanics, then it doesn't matter. So to me, that never bothered me. I like the more serious style, and I think once you get into it, there's a lot to really like here. I like the Squall Rinoa romance a lot. I do. I think it's great. Like, a lot of people disagree with me. I've had a lot of people tell me I was dropped on my head when I say this. That scene where they're on the spaceship and Eyes on Me, I think it's Eyes on Me, starts playing when they're kind of realizing that they're in love with each other. I think that scene's great. I really like that scene. I really like the then go talk to a wall line from Squall. I think that's an amazing line. So I'm actually going to say that's great. It's better than 9. I don't know if I like it better than 9, but I probably do. And it's definitely better than 9. 9 is just a much simpler game. So Final Fantasy 8, it's bordering on amazing, but I don't think it is amazing. It's close. I don't think Final Fantasy 8's amazing, but it's close. Okay. Final Fantasy 10. This is kind of like, yeah, King Zoa. I remember that too. And it's been a long time since I played that game, but I still remember all that. Okay. Final Fantasy 10 is kind of like cotton candy, I think. You can eat a lot of it. It tastes really good. I don't think it's as substantial as the other games in the franchise, but I do think it's made up for by the fact that there's so much there's so much to do in this game. Like, I put more hours into Final Fantasy X than any Final Fantasy game except probably 7. I played through the game like 4 or 5 times. It's very easy to pick up and play. The sphere grid is something that you don't have to think super hard about to use. I think it's a good battle system. The presentation makes things a little easier to like power through. Blitzball is fantastic. It's the best minigame they've ever made. They could have made Blitzball its own spin-off game, and I think it would have done well. It's just, I don't think there's as much to sink your teeth into here, but that is a good thing and a bad thing. But I'm going to put it in great. I think it's a great game. Yeah, I know I had a maxed out Blitzball. In fact, in Final Fantasy X, I think I had, in fact, I know I had a file where I did everything you could do in the game, including getting every super weapon, except for the super weapon where you had to dodge like 100 straight lightning bolts, because I couldn't do it. I couldn't dodge 100 straight lightning bolts. There was just no way. It wasn't happening. So I gave up. Wait a minute. Okay, never mind. So I didn't do that, but I did everything else. I maxed out everybody. I did the whole monster arena. I got all the other super weapons, but I wasn't going to dodge lightning bolts. There was just no way. Okay. Final Fantasy X-2. Okay, this one controversial, and to my surprise, a lot of people actually have fond memories of this game. It does have the job system, which is good, but I think it's kind of a weak job system. Final Fantasy X-2, playable, don't get me wrong. I did play through the game, I did beat it. I didn't hate it so much that I couldn't play it, but the story's bad, characters are bad. It feels like a spin off more than a sequel. But I think the cardinal sin of Final Fantasy X-2, it's way too easy. You can 90% of the time, if I recall correctly, just press X to win. It's a game where you press X to win, basically. um, so that's kind of lame. I don't mind games that are easy, but this game was way too easy. Most of the time, you just had to use your basic attack. So you put that all together, and I'm going to say the game's okay. I'm bottom tier for the franchise. One of the worst games in the franchise. But I'm going to still say it's okay because I was able to beat it, and I was never, like, annoyed or pissed off I had to play it, right? So Final Fantasy X-2, one of the worst games in the franchise. Still not something that I absolutely hated playing. All right, Final Fantasy 12. This is one of the ones that clicked with me really, really well. Final Fantasy 12 clicked with me way better than most people. This is not a super popular entry in the franchise. But when I played Final Fantasy 12 back in 2007, I think. And by the way, everything I'm about to say also applies for Zodiac Age. To me, it was Knights of the Old Republic, but without the massive amount of glitches. So I thought the game was great. In fact, I thought the game bordered on amazing. I think the game is one of the best games in the franchise. Now, I don't think it quite got to amazing. The story and characters are kind of not memorable, but I think the gameplay is great. So I'm actually going to put this up here ahead of 9, but behind 8. I played through the game twice. I played through it once on the original. I played it once on Zodiac Age, and both times I had a great time. I was very impressed with 12. I liked it way more than most people. To me, it was Knights of the Old Republic, but better. And I love Knights of the Old Republic, so I would love that, naturally. Okay, now we are moving on to probably the most polarizing. Maybe polarizing isn't even the right word here. We got Final Fantasy 13, and this is kind of where the franchise took a turn that a lot of people couldn't quite follow. And I do think it's one of the worst games in the franchise. Yeah, I liked Balthier a lot too. I remember when I was little thinking like if they ever make Final Fantasy 12 into a movie, Russell Crowe should play him. But anyway, so Final Fantasy 13, I still think it's a good game. I do. I do think it's good. Not by much. Not by much. Game has problems, but I don't think it has massive core problems that make the game just not very good. Um the it was very clearly trying to straddle the line between being an action game while still maintaining turn-based elements. I don't think it did a great job of it, but it did do a passable job of it. I like the presentation. I thought the story was pretty good. Not that I can remember it now, really. I don't remember very much about it. To me, it's just kind of like a game you play through once and it's fine. But obviously, there's not a whole lot to love here. So I'm going to say that's good. And I feel basically the same way about the sequel. I thought the sequel was good, not great. Close to being just in like the pretty good category. But overall, I think that Final Fantasy 13 and 13-2 are lower tier games in the franchise, but there's not enough for me to say that the game is actually like bad or even like has core flaws. Hey, big country. Yeah, King Zoa. I mean, I definitely don't like it as much as most games in the franchise, but there's some stuff in there that I think is salvageable. Now, Lightning Returns, on the other hand, Lightning Returns, I still was able to beat the game So I can't say it was like bad or anything, and I didn't hate playing it, but my God. This game had the stupidest mechanic. It was kind of like Majora's Mask with the day resetting after a certain number of time spent trying to do side quests. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was like you were trapped in a time loop. Really? You think so, Kingzo? I didn't think so. I thought it was the worst. I thought the time loop mechanic did not work very well. It was trying to do like Majora's Mask, but I didn't think it worked. It kind of made me feel like the game never really started. And then I had beaten the game and I was still like, did the game actually start or what? But I was still able to beat it. It's not a terrible game, but I think it's the worst in the trilogy, and I don't know why they made it. It feels like a spin-off more than a sequel to me. All right. Final Fantasy type, what is this? Type O, type H? What is this? Type O? What was it called? Thank you, Big Country. Either way, I haven't played it, but I've heard okay things about it. I'll probably play it one day. Okay, Final Fantasy 15. Um, I think the feel of this game is like the saving grace, right? Because the game is kind of like open world, but there's a lot of like nothing to do. You're just kind of wandering around. The combat's workable. Oh, really? Okay, Kingzo. Yeah, I haven't played it. Like the combat is workable. The presentation of the world is awesome. I love the world. I find some of the stuff that happens in the world of Final Fantasy 15 fascinating. I really like the camaraderie between the four main characters. I think that relationship and the way it's depicted is awesome. But at the end of the day, the story is completely forgettable. In fact, I think the ending feels super tacked on. So this one, I'm pulled in a lot of different ways on Final Fantasy 15. I really like the way the game looks and feels. Playing it is pretty good, but there's like some very lazy things going on here with this game, which is a shame because they spent so long on it. I do think it's a very good game overall, though, because the things that I do like are very stand out in my mind very well. But it's not as good as the truly great ones. I don't think it's as good as like 2/4. So I'm just gonna put it there. It's like a very weak, very good. Like it could easily be in the top end of good. Oh yeah, you're right, Kingzo. I remember that. Okay, Final Fantasy Dimensions. I don't know what that is. Now, what is this? Does anybody know what this is? Because I already ranked Final Fantasy 4, but what is this? Is this another Final Fantasy 4? Like that's Vivi, right? That's Vivi. So how is this Final Fantasy 4? And if this is Final Fantasy 4, then what is this? Is this Final Fantasy 2? Let me see here. Okay, so apparently the one down below that looks like it has Vivi on it is Final Fantasy 4, but what is this then? Is this just straight up Final Fantasy 2? Like the Japanese Final Fantasy 2? I guess it is. Okay, I got confused. Okay, this is Final Fantasy 2. So that being the case, I'm going to put this one in good right next to Final Fantasy 1. To me, they're both good games, but not amazing. Nothing super stand out. Okay, I see what you mean, King Zoa. Okay, so I'm going to put Final Fantasy 2 here. That's my bad. And this is Final Fantasy 4. This goes into very good. So I've already talked about Final Fantasy 4. So Final Fantasy 2 is a game that I'm actually playing through right now very slowly. It's got some really weird mechanics, but the story is actually a little more elaborate. The characters are a little more elaborate. I like where the game's going. Cool stuff. Um, the mechanics are easily abusable, but they're at least it's not like in a bad way. It's kind of like in a way that you can exploit to level fast and increase your character's abilities fast. So yeah, that's good. And Final Fantasy IV is very good. Now, I'm gonna just cop to something here. I'm gonna admit to something here. I didn't think that much of Final Fantasy IV when I played it. I'm sorry, Final Fantasy V when I played it. I thought it was very bare bones. I thought it was too easy. I thought that the job system was kind of very stripped down, which it was in fairness, and that shouldn't even really be a negative, right? Because at the end of the day, it was like one of the first games with the job system. Something about Final Fantasy V did not really resonate that strongly with me. I still liked it, but I would say it's just kind of a pretty good game. I don't know. There's something about it. I need to play it again. I'll say that. Because there are a lot of people that have played Final Fantasy V and consider it to be one of the best games in the franchise. So I think I just need to play it again. Something just didn't resonate with me that first time. I remember liking 4 a lot more. But I definitely feel like I probably just struck out with it a little bit. And if I played through it again, I would probably have a different impression. So I'm putting that in pretty good near the bottom, but if I played it again, I would probably change my mind. Final Fantasy VI. Oh, yes. Now, this is a game that transcends time. This is one of the best games ever. I think it's the best retro game ever. It's the best game on the Super Nintendo. It's the best game that was made before, like, probably, I'd say 1996, 1997 or so. It is a game that inspired Final Fantasy VII in so many ways. The Esper system's like basically a basic version of materia. Um, the way the story progresses in Final Fantasy VI is they don't do things like that anymore. Like, sorry to ruin it for anybody who hasn't played Final Fantasy VI before, but like the bad guy wins in Final Fantasy VI. They don't do that anymore. How often do you see a game where the villain just straight up wins and then you have to go beat him afterwards? Like, they don't make him like this anymore. Like, the only other thing I can think of that does that is like the Lion King. Like, the Lion King kind of does that, right? Where like the villain wins and then you come back years later when it doesn't really matter that much and you kill him, but he already won. But I think the game was a little dated by the time I played it, so it's not a masterpiece for me. I'm going to put it in amazing. I do think it's an amazing game. The characters are phenomenal. The gameplay is great. Like, there's so much to love in Final Fantasy VI, but I'm not going to put it in masterpiece. I think it's amazing. Okay. Mystic Quest did not play. Snowboarding. Yeah, that was a Celis, right? King Zoa? She tried to commit suicide, or was that Terra? I think it was Celis, though. Dude, Teenage Me had a thing for Celis. I loved Celis. Okay, so we have Final Fantasy VII Snowboarding. And I remember very clearly that there's a mini game in Final Fantasy VII that had snowboarding in it. Is the game literally just that mini game? I mean, I haven't played it either way. Assuming they spun it off into its own game, I haven't played it. There's the Rhythm Curtain Call. Final Fantasy did not play. After Years, no. No. Final Fantasy Awakening. Explorer's Force did not play. Final Fantasy Worldwide Words did not play. Okay, here we go. Final Fantasy VII Remake. Terra was the green haired girl, King Zoa, I think. Let's see here. Final Fantasy VII Remake. It's I think it falls a little bit short of greatness, but it's so close to greatness, I don't mind putting it there. So to me, it's like the low end of great or the high end of very good. I like what they're doing with the twists to the story in the Final Fantasy VII Remake. I like the way they're approaching it. I like the presentation. I like I think the combat is probably the best example we've ever had of a game that combines menu based with real time. Like Kingdom Hearts tried to do it and was okay. Final Fantasy 15 tried to do it and it was decent. But Final Fantasy 7 does it, I think, about as good as it can. Yeah, Big Chungus, I remember you. So I'm gonna put that in great, but it's like the low end of great, I think. At the end of the day, I wish they could just go back to the old way of doing things. I wish they could have old school combat like in Dragon Quest, but they're never gonna do it. Okay, Final Fantasy 7 G Bike did not play. Grandmasters didn't play. A King's Tale. This is I think a prequel to Final Fantasy 15. Didn't play it. This is Dissidia NT. I don't think I played this one. The only Dissidia I played is the original. Final Fantasy Record Keeper. FFU on PC, no. Final Fantasy 15 multi. Dude, how many Final Fantasy 15 spin offs did they make? This is ridiculous. Okay. All these Chocobo games, I didn't play any of them. I wonder if any of them are good. There's no way, right? The King's Tale was actually pretty good for a free game. Is it a mobile game? No, Big Chungus. Chocobo's Crystal Tower, didn't play. This Chocobo game didn't play. Another Chocobo game. Chocobo game. Chocobo game. My God, they made like 20 Chocobo games. Look at this. Oh, it's on console. Okay. Um, is Vagrant Story a Final Fantasy game? Because I have played Vagrant Story, but it's not a Final Fantasy game. Like I've beaten Vagrant Story. It's a good game. I liked it. But how is it a Final Fantasy game? Is there some connection that I'm not seeing? Like I don't know where that comes from. I mean, if I'm ranking it, I think it's good. I would put it in good. Something like that. But how is Vagrant Story a Final Fantasy game? Wrath of the Dark Dragon, no. Crystal Defenders, no. Dive Hunt: The Adventures of Sorbet, Brave Exvius. Vagrant Story is supposed to be the world of FF12 but different characters. Really? I never knew that. Isn't the world of Final Fantasy 12 Ivalice? Like the same world as Tactics. Huh. Justice Monsters 5 didn't play. Crystal Defenders didn't play. This is World of Final Fantasy, but I don't know what the difference is between this and the one I actually did play. I mean, this one's in Japanese, so maybe it's like a sequel that never got ported into America. Okay. Well, I didn't play it anyway. Okay. Okay, so that's my Final Fantasy tier list. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Okay, that's everyone I played. That's every Final Fantasy game I played. Ranked. Or tiered. And ranked, by the way. I kind of put them in rough order of my preference. So, Masterpiece is 7 in Tactics. Amazing is 6. 8 is great. Great is 8, 12, 9, 10, and the 7 remake. Very good is 4 and 15. Good is World of Final Fantasy, Vagrant Story, Crisis Core, Dissidia, 13 2, 13, 1, 2. Pretty good is Lightning Returns, and 5, and okay is 10 2. And then all these are games I haven't played. So looking at this list, the games that I haven't played that I probably should play, um, like maybe Crystal Chronicles. I'm gonna play Dirge of Cerberus because I have it. Maybe a Dissidia sequel since I'm playing the original. Some of these Game Boy ones are probably pretty good, but what's the point of playing them now? Final Fantasy IV The After Years would be nice. So there's a decent number that I could still play. Like, I'm not going to play these fucking Chocobo games, I know that. But, yeah, that's my tier list. So, thanks to the people who hung around and watched this. Hopefully it appealed to your interest in some way. Thank you. I think I'm probably done for the night. I don't think I'm going to stream on Twitch tonight, but we'll see. And hope you guys enjoyed the show. I will catch you guys tomorrow. There should be a video in the morning, by the way. First time we've had a Seahawks video in a little bit. Hope to see you guys then. Hope you guys enjoyed. That is my tier list of Final Fantasy games. All 20. I guess actually 21 that I have played, because I did not know Vagrant Story was technically a Final Fantasy game. My only problem with Cerberus is it's such a choppy mess if you play it on older console. I have it on PS3. I got it off the PS Store. So I don't know what to expect. But I'm not expecting anything amazing. I know that. I'm just going to expect a decent time. Okay. So that is the end of the tier list. Thank you for watching. All right. I recorded that just in case I want to upload it separately. But thank you, King Zoa, for keeping me company. Somebody needed to. Obviously, this is not something that's going to appeal to most of my viewership, but hopefully some people had fun with it. Yeah, and in a few days, we'll be adding a new game to this list because we're going to have 16, and it's going to be out, and I'm going to be playing it. Hope to see you guys on Twitch in a few days.